Okay guys, so welcome back. Today I am going to teach you first the 3 primary pricing models for coaches, consultants, and service providers, because there are 3 main ways that you can actually price your packages and services. Number 2, I'm actually going to walk you through what I do and how I determine exactly what my pricing strategy is. So how I give my prices to my clients, I'm going to walk you through how I come up with that. And then I want you to make sure that you stick around for the entire video, because I'm also going to give you 9 major tips and considerations that you need to kind of figure into your pricing strategy. And these are going to be extremely helpful. These are things that I use every single year when I'm reconfiguring my pricing, and they're things that you're going to want to consider as well. So let's get into it. First, let's talk about the 3 different pricing models, all right? And there are 3 primary ways that consultants, coaches, service providers can kind of price out what you do and your services. First, you can do an hourly pricing model. And this is really what I would call service-based pricing. This is when you basically tell your clients, this is how much I charge per hour. And when you say this is how much I charge per hour, you then are able to say, and I will invoice you based upon the number of hours it takes me to actually get whatever this is done for you, whatever you're doing for them done. Now, this is actually my least favorite pricing model. And the reason is because I have actually done it. I've done all 3 of these, by the way. And I've actually done the hourly one. And what it does is it kind of creates this mindset in your client, or at least what I found what it does is it creates this mindset in your client where they begin to determine whether or not whatever it is that you are doing should take a certain amount of time. And it's not their expertise. They wouldn't be hiring you to do the service, but naturally they automatically in their mind try to determine if it should be taking you that much time. And then they begin to question whether or not they should be being charged what you're charging them, because in their mind, it shouldn't take that much time to get this certain thing done. And that's really very, very dependent upon each individual person and how long it takes them to get work done. Like for me, for instance, when people charge me by the hour for things, I find myself doing it. Even though I am a consultant and a coach and a service provider, I find myself doing it because I tend to be able to sit down, get focused, get things done, and get things done pretty quickly. So in my mind, which is a part of my problem why I set unrealistic deadlines a lot, and why my team tells me that I set unrealistic deadlines, y'all. Because in my mind, it shouldn't take that long to get it done. Well, when you are using an hourly pricing model, which is service-based, that's generally what it causes. And so people literally begin to create this mindset for themselves that you are worth a certain amount per hour and that it should take you a certain number of hours to get things done. And it really does remove kind of the value from what you're doing and really just kind of become an exchanging hours for dollars thing. So I understand and it's the natural tendency for you as a coach or a consultant or a service provider to go with this pricing model. But I've found over the years that it is the least advantageous and also the trickiest and the most frustrating. But I do use this practice as a basis to figure out how I charge my prices. So my prices right now, this pricing model is actually a part of how I determine them. But I'm going to explain more about that later on. All right. So this is pricing model number 1, and it's something that you can start out with, but it's not something that I would recommend you continue with throughout your practice, because again, it creates kind of a weird dichotomy sometimes with your clients. Now, pricing model number 2 is a retainer-based pricing model. And I actually do have still some clients right now in my practice that are on retainer pricing models, meaning they retain me, they pay me the exact same amount every single month in order to be available and offer them my expertise. And that pricing amount that I charge them every single month is based upon actually the 3rd pricing model, which I'll get into a little bit, but they pay me every single month. So I've basically started out by giving them an annual price for whatever it is that I'm providing, for the service that I'm giving to them. And then what I generally do with that is just break it up and divide it by 12 in order to come up with what that monthly retainer is going to be. But the retainer-based strategy, clients just pay basically a fixed fee in order to have ongoing access to your services over a defined period of time. Most of my retainer-based clients right now don't have an end time. They can cancel. It's in the service agreement that they can cancel with at least 30 days notice, which means they can cancel at any time with 30 days notice, but it's ongoing. So it doesn't have an end mark, but they do ultimately pay me every single month, the exact same amount, or some clients I still have from way back when, where they pay me actually quarterly for this retainer-based strategy, and then they have access to my expertise throughout the month. This model does offer a lot of stability. I find that I can really count on this revenue and this income as long as I'm doing a great job from a service perspective. So I do love the retainer-based model, although I no longer offer retainer-based models to my client. I've removed it from my business. I've got some, again, that are grandfathered in, but I've removed it because it ultimately doesn't serve my long-term purpose and my long-term goal in my business, which you guys know I've talked about before, which is, to kind of be flexible and be able to live my life and begin to enjoy my freedoms in a few years when my youngest graduates from college. So I've stopped offering it, but I do still have clients on it, and it's one of my, my favorite. I've loved it over the years. For a long time I had it. It was the only one in my business, and I continue to use it from time to time with my grandfather clients. And the third pricing model that you can use in your business is project-based, and that is really the primary method that I use currently in my business. Now, project-based basically means that you are going to set a fixed price for a project to be completed. And again, I have tried all three of these models in my business, and I have found currently that project-based is my best. It's my favorite. It allows me to make sure that I've got a start time and an end time for a contract. It also makes sure that my clients have expectations around something starting and them actually seeing their results in a certain period of time. But it does require for me to make sure that I am pricing out the entire project properly, which I am going to get into with you later. So make sure you stick around on exactly how I price out those projects. But I am primarily a project-based pricing model consultant right now and coach right now. And basically it's saying, here's a project, here's what we're gonna do, here's the results, here's the deliverables and the scope of work that I'm gonna provide you with, and this is how much that project is going to cost you. That way it doesn't get into how many hours it's actually taking me to complete it. My clients don't get into that. They don't say you should be doing it faster or it shouldn't take you that much time. And then they also, it's truly the value of what I'm providing, that result that they're ultimately getting. So it's very value-based, this particular type of pricing model, because it basically says, this is what I'm going to do for you, this is what your results and transformation is going to be, and this is how much that result is going to cost you. So it ties the price to the result, and it makes everybody happy in the end, and that's how I ultimately can get some of my larger contracts, because I will say, here's the project, this is how long it's going to take me, and this is what it's going to cost you, $30,000 or $40,000 or whatever it's going to cost. And then I'm able to break up the payments for my client over time, but ultimately they know that they're going to get this result for this much money, and they're better able to evaluate the value based upon what you're telling them that you're going to do. Okay, so before I get into 9 major considerations that I want you to consider, now that you know what the pricing models are, I want you to make sure that you are taking in these considerations into account when you are pricing yours. And then I'm going to talk to you exactly about how I price mine right now. But before I do, if you are liking where I'm going with this, if you've got questions about your pricing, please make sure that you let me know in the comments below. Go ahead and ask whatever questions you have around your pricing. If you've got an idea around a price, put it down in the comments. Say, this is what I'm going to be doing, and this is what I'm thinking about charging CP. What do you think about that? I will be happy to help evaluate that with you and for you, because again, it is something that I do with my clients in VIP days. I have entire VIP days around strategy, and a big strategy that I sit with my clients and produce in those days is all of their pricing. We figure out their packages, their offers, and their pricing. That's an entire VIP day. So if that's something that you think you might want to work with me on one-on-one, let me know in the comments below. I'll make sure that you get the link to the application to apply for the VIP, because they are only by application only. Or you can also go to www.cherylcperez.com/VIP application and apply for a strategy day where we figure out your offer, your services, your packages, and your pricing. And we can get that going in your business too. And while you are down there commenting, please make sure that you like this video. It totally helps the algorithm, totally helps our goal. share this video, leave me a thumbs up, and let's get into these 9 major considerations that I want you to take into account. Okay, so here's the 9 considerations that I want you to make sure you do. So get your pen and your paper. I'm going to go through them really quickly, but I want to make sure that you are taking this into consideration as you are pricing out your stuff. First, you have to understand your services completely. You have to assess the nature of what you are providing, the value that you are bringing, and what the typical client that you are working with is going to need, and how much what you're giving them is going to impact them, what transformation and result they're going to get, and you have to really take into consideration what you're providing. Understand your value. That is absolutely critical. Second, in order to be able to understand your value, you've got to know your target market. You've got to know who your customer is. You've got to understand their needs and their pain points, and you have to make sure that you have created products and services around those challenges, because the essence of who you are as a coach, as a consultant, and as someone providing a service is you're a problem solver. And so you have to really understand what the problems are in order to be able to develop it. The third thing that I want you to think about is to evaluate the project's complexity. So if you have determined that this is a certain type of service that you're going to provide, or a certain type of project that you're going to complete, how complex is it? Is it going to involve you and your team? Is it going to involve you and you hiring out to someone else or outsourcing certain things? How complex is it? How much detail is involved? Think about that, because ultimately the more complex, the more expensive it should be, because the more value you're going to ultimately provide. The fourth thing I want you to make sure you're considering is your expertise. Remember, as a coach, as a consultant, as a service provider, you are literally selling your intellectual property. You're selling your expertise. And that means that if you're selling it and people are buying it, that you have something that a lot of other people don't have. Problem solving is a hot commodity right now, folks. I'm just saying. You have no idea how hard it is to find people and to find help that are actually problem solvers and actually bring solutions to the table for small business owners or for individuals. So if you are in that consulting and coaching space, then you're that problem solver. So make sure that you truly, truly, truly value and understand your expertise, because if you have specialized skills or experience in a project-based model, then you are bringing something to the table that you should definitely add in to that pricing strategy. Number 5, you should also consider your client's budget and the perceived value of what you're doing. Your client has to also know how much value you're bringing, which means that in your sales process, that SOP, that time frame, that conversation, that presentation, that you are really highlighting their challenges and their pain points, and you are showing them how what you're going to do is bringing them solutions. So please make sure that you are factoring that in, that value, what your client, whoever your ICA is, can pay, but also really what that transformation is going to do about changing their life, and you have to make sure that you're communicating that in your sales process. The 6th thing is the competitor's analysis. You have to take into account what your competition is doing as well. Do not outprice yourself. Now, I've gotten to a point in my practice where, I do check and see kind of what my competitors are out there charging for certain services, but I don't really, it's not a huge factor anymore. In the beginning, it was a huge factor, right? It was a primary thing. But now that I've continued to understand the transformation, I've gotten that social proof, I've seen the impact of what I've been able to help my clients achieve. It's a lot less a part of what I do and how I figure out my stuff, but you're definitely going to want to take into consideration. So what I do is I kind of come up with my pricing, and then I do a quick check and say, hey, am I pricing myself out of the market? Because people can Google, people will look it up. And if you are way overpriced, they're not going to be less likely to move forward. So just kind of remove that barrier if it exists by knowing exactly if you're in the ballpark. Even if you're a little higher than your competitors, it's okay, because you're going to bring better value. You just got to communicate it. But just make sure that you kind of know if you're in the ballpark, because the ballpark is where you want to be. Number 7, consider the flexibility and scalability of of what it is that you are proposing from a pricing structure. You've got to make sure that you're flexible and being able to adjust based upon your client, but most importantly, can you scale, right? So don't start so high that you can't go anywhere else. You want to make sure that if you are starting high, that you can then grow your package or grow your service or really create something that's going to scale with your business, because you can literally create a pricing structure right now that can kind of stunt your growth. So make sure that you are considering the flexibility and scalability of what you're pricing your things at, because that's going to be important for your future and also your ability to be able to kind of get that client, get those testimonials, get that social proof and move forward, right? Also, major consideration, be transparent. Very clearly communicate to your client how much it costs. The more confident you are in communicating the costs, the more likely that they're just going to say, okay, it just is what it is, and that's what it costs. When you hem and haw around that, it does create this, why is she uncertain, or why is he uncertain of what he's charging me? Maybe I should look into this a little bit more. So be transparent and be confident when you're communicating it in order to make sure that everybody involved in the conversation understands the value and understands what you're really going to bring to the table. And my ninth and final major consideration is review and audit. Look, whatever price you come up with now, that's not the end of the story for you. That's not the end of the road. You will adjust. You will need to review and you will need to make the adjustment. So do not put yourself under so much pressure by saying to yourself, whatever price I come up with now is the price I gotta have or I'm going to have forever. That's not necessarily the case. It's okay to start somewhere and to grow and to change. As a matter of fact, it is mandatory. I review and adjust my pricing every single year. Sometimes I have increases, sometimes I don't, but I review it and I make sure that I'm in the right place. So do not worry and do not hold yourself accountable as if whatever price you choose today will be the price you have forever. It's okay. As a matter of fact, I'm telling you, you have to make sure that you are reviewing, making adjustments, and updating on an annual basis. And that lets you off the hook that if you choose a price now, you won't feel like it's such a dire decision, that it actually prevents you from taking action and moving forward. Now, let's talk about how I actually determine my pricing. And this has actually been years and years of experience. I have done, as I mentioned, all the models, and those major considerations that I just went over with you are things that I've used when determining my pricing and coming up with my pricing strategy as well. So how I currently do it is really a hybrid approach. And it's a hybrid because I am experimenting and usually combining lots of different factors when it comes to actually choosing my pricing. Now, first things first, the pricing model that I currently use in my business primarily, as I mentioned, is project-based pricing models. I also do have some retainer-based. I do not do hourly. I stopped doing hourly years ago, and I explained already why I don't do hourly. But I do use a combination of various methods in order to determine my pricing. So first, I do a cost plus pricing, right? Cost plus pricing is basically service-based and value-based. So I understand what it's costing me in order to get a certain task done. That understanding requires really truly knowing your organizational numbers. So you've got to kind of have some financial activity going on. You've got to understand the expenses, your operating expenses. You have to also understand if getting something done for a client is going to require your team's involvement, meaning you're paying for it, or even you outsourcing it to another party. So with Cost Plus, you basically have to know exactly how much delivering the service is costing you, and then you're going to add some profit margin into that. So that is one way that I include right now in my pricing strategy. So I use Cost Plus. I know exactly how much it costs to run my business at all times, and that overall per project price is what I use in the determining of my pricing. So all of my services start with that basic Cost Plus calculation, right? So it's Cost Plus. Then I also add in my service-based and my value-based. So my service-based basically means I know how long it takes me to get something done. So remember earlier when I said I don't use hourly pricing anymore, but I do use it as a way for me to determine my pricing strategy? That's exactly what I mean. First, I know in Cost Plus how much it's costing me to get the service done. Then I also know how long it takes me to get something done. If I am, for instance, creating an HR department for a client, so I am building out all of their HR processes, building all of their SOPs out, determining exactly what the steps are in every single major HR process at an organization, which I do frequently for clients and contracts. So there are, in essence, 5 to 6 major HR processes. I know exactly how long it takes me to map out those SOPs because I map out the SOPs and I create all of the assets that go along with that process. So all the forms, any policies, any procedures, any, step-by-steps, I know how long it takes me. And then I also know how much I'm worth at this point, my value per hour. So I use that value-based piece as well. And I know that if it's going to take me 60 hours to map out the 6 major, then this is just a guess, guys. I'm not saying that's how long it's going to take me, but if it's going to take 60 hours for me to map out the 6 major HR processes in an HR department, it takes me 60 hours to build that out. And I know that I am worth $400 an hour. That automatically puts me at $24,000 for that particular thing. And I also know, hey, well, it's $24,000. Is that going to be okay for how much it's going to cost me? I know that it's going to take at least 20 hours of my team's time, and I know how much I pay them. I know how many resources and tools I'm using. I know how much technology I'm using. So now I've figured in, does this $24,000 that I'm starting with, does that consider my cost plus? And I'm usually like, well, yeah, I may need to add like another $4,000 for my cost plus. So now I'm at $28,000. And then the value, is $28,000 a good range for the value that I'm bringing? The fact that my client will not be sitting around figuring out and building their entire HR department themselves, all their processes. And then I'm like, okay, so what can I do to increase the value? Well, I'm going to go ahead and add in their training. So I'm going to train the person on their team that they want to primarily administer these processes. So I'm going to be at $28,000. I'm going to throw in that training. And that's kind of where I come up with that package pricing. So you see where I'm going with this? I do package pricing right now, but in order to determine what that is, I take into consideration the costs, plus how many hours it's going to take me and my hourly worth, and then also the value. And can I build anything else in that's going to help them see further results and transformation and also add value to what that pricing is? And that's ultimately how I determine my pricing now. And then I double check it with a little sprinkle, that's my way, but I also sprinkle the competitive piece in there. And I say sprinkle, I like that music, like that sprinkle. I sprinkle the competitive analysis in there because once I come up with that $28,000 in the example that I just gave you, then I'm gonna double check it and make sure that I'm not pricing myself out of the market, that I am still being competitive, and that it's something that my competitors would ultimately be charging as well. And sometimes I find that I'm way underpricing myself and I can bump it up a little bit more, or I find, okay, you're way overpriced, and then I can bring it down a little bit. Take out some of the services if I need to, but bring it down a little bit, or just stay right where I'm at and say, this has to be the sales presentation of a lifetime, CP, because you got to make sure you are honing in on that need and that challenge and that pain point that you are ultimately going to solve for your client. So again, if you want me to help you do this in your business, let me know in the comments down below. I'd be happy to help and get you into the VIP program. But ultimately, remember, a well-considered pricing strategy is going to be critical to your success as a consultant or a coach or a service provider. It is the beginning of the growth of your organization. So take the time to really think about all the things I talked to you about today and create the perfect pricing strategy. But always know that you've got room to adjust, you've got room to review, and you've got room to make the necessary changes in order to get to that next level. And until next time, my loves, I can't wait to see you again. See you next week. Stay safe. Bye-bye. Mwah!